Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome to the nutrition module of Trying to Conceive After Loss. I was really thrilled to be invited by Bex and Laura to contribute to this course because it's something I am really passionate about. And from my perspective, everybody who's trying for a baby needs to consider their nutrition. After all, we each have to eat every single day, and there are some things that we can really do to help get us in the best shape possible. And these are the things that I'd really like to focus on over the course and give you some pointers of some of those areas where we can really make the biggest difference. Now, it doesn't need to be wholesale changes, all right? Every little thing that you do is going to be a step in the right direction. Everything that you do that is going to give you a more nutrient dense diet, for example, is going to take you one step closer. Now, that said, and this is really important, and I want to stress this, I 100% do not believe that there was anything that you did or didn't eat that caused any loss that you have suffered. Okay, I've been through loss myself. I've done a hell of a lot of research into this area. That is not the way that this works. On the other hand, that we do have some really good evidence to support nutrition and lifestyle interventions as effective ways to reduce individual risk factors and therefore improve the chances of a successful pregnancy. And that is what we're going to focus in on. So first of all, I'd like to give you a little bit of an introduction to me. My name is Alison Hall. I am a registered nutritionist, a functional medicine practitioner, and a health coach. And I have a special interest in fertility and female health, and I work specifically with couples and individuals who have experienced loss. And those people who work with me are working with me because they are wanting to find ways to improve their fertility naturally. Now, this might be alongside an IVF or, assisted reproductive techniques, or it might be going through natural conception. This framework, if you like, can be really helpful for everybody. Now down here, I've just put in a little bit of background information of some of the collaborations that I've most recently been working with. So I'm sure that you're all at really different stages of your fertility journey, but I'm guessing that one thing that you all have in common is that you want to get your bodies in the best shape that you possibly can to improve your chances of a successful pregnancy. Now, you might feel as though it's all entirely out of your hands, but there really are some things that we can do to begin to claw back some sense of control and take charge of this journey. And having lived it myself, I know how important this is because it can really help to empower us, to motivate us to keep moving forward. And these are things that you can do as a couple. So what we're going to be looking at is the modifiable factors here. We're going to be focusing on food and nutrition today, but there are other areas that are also worth considering: weight management, exercise, stress, smoking, drug use, medications, alcohol, caffeine, and exposure to environmental toxins. And with this latter area, environmental toxins, again, I have created a handout for you that you will be given at some point during this course, again, to give you some areas that you can begin to think about, and so that, again, you can begin to reduce your risk factors. But before we move on, I think it's really important to shatter some fertility myths, because there is a hell of a lot of misinformation out there in the fertility space. You may have been told that there is nothing you can do to improve your chances. I'm here to tell you that there is. You may have been told that it is a woman's issue. It absolutely 100% is not just down to the woman. This is a team game. It takes two to tango. You may have been led to believe that your consultant or your doctor knows about diet and lifestyle. Well, while there are some fantastically enlightened GPs and consultants out there, unfortunately, the model of medical training as it stands at the moment really does not dedicate very much time at all to nutrition studies. So unfortunately, the vast majority of consultants and doctors do not have this information to hand. And you might have been led to believe or told that all prenatal supplements do the same job. Well, I'm afraid they absolutely do not. And again, this is an area that we're going to cover in a little bit more detail. And I've created a handout for you so that we can really look at some of the basic first base, if you like, supplements. But obviously, we can tweak those according to the individual, again, depending on your own personal health story. So, first things first. It takes 12 months to make a baby. Not 9, it takes 12. And I really, really want us to focus in on this because this is fundamental to everything that's going to follow. Now, you may be aware that a woman is born with all of her eggs. In fact, by the end of that second trimester in utero, your mother has created you and all of your eggs would have been fully formed. Now, these eggs then exist in a state of kind of hibernation until roughly 3 to 4 months prior to ovulation. Now, it is no coincidence that spermatogenesis, which is the production of sperm, also takes roughly 3 months. So it takes 3 months for a man to produce an entirely new batch of sperm. The conditions that our cells, our bodies are exposed to during those 3 to 4 months is absolutely critical to the quality of the egg and the sperm cells that are produced at the other end. This is the preconception period. And there are lots and lots of studies to show that good nutrition and lifestyle practices during this preconception period can support a healthy pregnancy. And this can be done by supporting the process of ovulation. They can support egg health, sperm health. They can support the internal environment, so they can support implantation and indeed the womb environment so that we can nurture that growing baby. Now also, and I find this utterly mind-blowing, the work that we do during this 3 to 4 months can even have an impact on the future health of your child all the way into adulthood. So there really is a hell of a lot to play for here. There's a window of opportunity to prep your body, and you can make a difference whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, or your 40s. So much so that you could end up with better quality eggs, better quality sperm than your younger self, maybe say 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Now, it's all about reducing risk factors. That's what we're looking to do here. And so when a couple come to work with me, I'm going to spend quite a bit of time fact finding and information gathering. And I really, really want to understand what's going on with your health at the moment. And for that reason, what I'm going to do now is just run through the sort of questions that I tend to ask my clients. And if any of these trigger any kind of alarm bells in you, it's really something that's possibly worth investigating further. So how is your health at the moment? Do you have any niggling health issues that actually really could do with being addressed? How's your energy? Do you find it hard to get up in the morning? Do you suffer with those sort of 3, 4 o'clock afternoon slumps? Do you experience brain fog or difficulty concentrating? How's your menstrual cycle? Do you know your period? How long is that cycle? How heavy is your bleed? Do you take notice of whether you have any spotting during that cycle? And do you know when it comes? Is it regular occurrence? Do you know when you ovulate? Have you noticed any changes in your cycle recently? Do you keep an eye on your cervical mucus? Because again, that can give us some really valuable information about how this cycle and how your hormones are working. What about your digestion? Do you experience bloating, flatulence, gas? Do you suffer with abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea? Do you need to rush to the loo after you've eaten a meal? Do you find it difficult to digest fatty or rich foods? Do you suffer with indigestion? Gut health is implicated in the health of every other body system. To the extent that I like to say, we are not what we eat, but we are what we digest and what we absorb. Now, what I mean by that is you could have the best diet in the world. You could have the best quality, most beautiful fresh produce. You could be taking a cocktail of really extravagant, lavish, super expensive supplements, for example. But if your body, and more importantly, your digestive system, are not working optimally, you are not going to be able to digest and absorb those nutrients to be able to transport all those vital vitamins and minerals to the cells so that they can work optimally. Have you had your thyroid function checked? The reason I ask this is because low thyroid function is implicated in so many cases of pregnancy loss. I see it all the time in pregnancy, to the extent that I demand almost that every single one of my clients, particularly my female clients, does have a comprehensive thyroid check when we start working together. What about your sleep? How do you sleep? Do you sleep? Most of us need roughly 7 to 8 hours a night to allow our body to repair. Now, when we don't get that sleep, when, for example, we spend time, late nights scrolling on social media, for example, looking at those blue screens of our devices, it can really impair the production of melatonin. Now, melatonin is our sleep hormone, but it's also an antioxidant, and it's an antioxidant that our ovaries absolutely love. And the reason for that is that melatonin helps to protect our ovaries and helps to regulate our cycle. So if we're thinking egg quality, we need to focus in on sleep. It's really worthwhile considering these areas to see if there's anything that you can do to support them. Now, some of these areas, some of the ones that I've mentioned already, the ones that are mentioned on this slide, you can have a go at tackling yourself. Things like sleep, exercise, maybe even stress, although to be honest, I think most of us could do with a bit of help in that department. But then there are some areas that may require some more specialist support, and the best way to do that is to find a practitioner who you can work with. So the things I'm thinking along the lines of there are things like if you suffer with recurrent UTIs, what about thrush, bacterial vaginosis? All those are areas that I would say really, really do demand some specialist investigation. It's relatively easy to do that now. There are some fantastic tests available on the market, and they are, or certainly in my practice, they've become an absolute game changer. And one of the reasons for this is that a lot of these infections that are responsible for example, bacterial vaginosis, UTIs, bacteria like E. coli, Enterococcus faecalis, for example, have also been implicated in negative pregnancy outcomes. Also think about your digestive issues. It may be that you need a little bit of extra help there. Or if you're suffering with such bad fatigue or such low energy that even a couple of good nights of sleep won't actually get you back on track. Those are the sort of times that it really is worthwhile thinking that you might need a little bit of extra support. Now, another area that we need to think about is nutrient or maternal depletion. Now, this is a really, really big issue that I see in clinic all the time, and it can be caused by lots of things. So it can be caused by diet. So if, for example, you have a diet that is very high in processed foods and it doesn't have perhaps so many of your fruit and vegetables, or it doesn't contain good quality protein or essential fatty fatty acids. We're going to come on to that when we talk about nutrients in a little bit more detail. But that's something that can cause or can mean that you're not getting those important raw ingredients into your body. Again, gut health, we've already talked about it. If you can't digest and absorb those foods that you're eating, then again, your body's going to have a real problem functioning in the way that it needs to. If you've spent years on the oral contraceptive pill, like so many of us have in the past, we need to be aware that the oral contraceptive pill can actually deplete certain nutrients. And the nutrients that it tends to deplete, ironically, are the ones that we really need for fertility. So lots of the B vitamins, like folic acid or folate, zinc, magnesium, B12, vitamin A, vitamin E, for example. Medications are another area to think about. So again, if you're on prescription meds, we need to just be aware that there are some medications that can, again, deplete or stop our body absorbing certain other nutrients. Caffeine, alcohol, stress, again, they can really hamper our production and our absorption of certain nutrients. For example, when we are under prolonged periods of stress, like, for example, going through the fertility journey, our adrenal glands hoover up our B vitamins, vitamin C and magnesium. So we may need a little bit of extra support in those areas. And then, of course, there is pregnancy. Miscarriage and loss leave us depleted. The emotional and physical stress can have a huge, huge impact. It can really, really take its toll on our body. Now, there are some great supplements out there, and we will talk about them when we get to that supplement part of the module. But it's also going to come down to diet. And I always say you cannot out-supplement a bad diet, but you can enhance a good diet. So it's got to be food first. We've got to start with those 3 meals that we're eating every single day. And again, I'm going to give you some weekly challenges so you can begin to become a little bit more mindful and begin to focus in on some of those areas that are going to make the biggest difference. Now, we're all really aware that as women, we have a biological clock that ticks louder and louder as we get older. But semen parameters also decline after roughly the age of 35. And it's really, really important to get our men on board. By the age of 40 and beyond, DNA damage to sperm can become quite significant. The good news is that there is strong evidence to support certain antioxidants, which can be particularly effective for men to start to address through diet male factor fertility. And when we're talking about antioxidants, again, I'll go into this in more detail, but we're thinking a lot of those really brightly coloured fruit and vegetables. Red fruit and veg are really, really important because they contain something called lycopene that we know is associated with better semen parameters. Zinc is another nutrient that we get in, for example, nuts and seeds. So I very often recommend that my male clients have a couple of tablespoons of mixed nuts and seeds every single day. Some of these things are really simple, and even by making a couple of these interventions, you're going to make a difference. Now, other things to bear in mind when we're talking about male fertility, and I do also have a handout for you which goes into this in a little bit more detail. But for example, we know that heat can be incredibly detrimental for the male reproductive area and can damage the quality of sperm. There's a reason that the testicles sit outside the body, and it's because it's cooler, so it's going to protect the sperm and the integrity of those sperm cells. So there are some things, again, that we can do here. Rather than wearing briefs, go for boxer shorts. Turn off the heated seats in cars. If you're cycling, try and limit or get your partner to limit the amount of cycling he does, because actually what you're doing is you're scrunching up the crown jewels, if you like, and that's not going to be great for blood flow to that area. Similarly, think about EMF, so electromagnetic fields. You don't want to have your laptop on your lap. You don't want to have your mobile phone in your jeans pocket. Better to put it in your jacket pocket where it's a little bit further away from that reproductive area. We also then need to think about some of those same areas that we'll delve into for women. So think about men's digestion, their toxic burden, and any other underlying health issues. We want to really consider all of these areas because it is a team game. It takes two to tango. 50% of the DNA in that baby is going to come from your partner. This is not just a female issue. Now, I really hope that this has given you some food for thought, excuse the pun. What I'm going to do over the coming weeks is I'm going to drop certain challenges for you and give you some guidance in terms of areas that you can really begin to focus in on so that you can start to use nutrition in a more meaningful way to enhance your fertility. Now, the idea is that this is not overwhelming and we want to take it one step at a time. I'm going to give you all the information, but every single thing that you can do along the way to make an improvement to what your current or the way you're currently eating is going to help. We don't necessarily need to bring in all of these areas, certainly not immediately. We want to take it step by step because the idea is that when we are going to be, for example, talking about a Mediterranean diet, spoiler alert there, this is something that you can do for life. It's not just for this fertility journey. And that's going to really benefit you in the long run. I hope this has been helpful and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Bye.